Okay, this is it, guys. Is the Fife property market running out of steam? QVT. So here we are. So we've got on to show today. We've got Richard Cook and Perry McIntosh. Hi guys, how are you? This is a controversial subject, isn't it? I mean, really, there's total speculation in this. So where are we going to go with this? Recent articles in the Fife property market. I've been talking about a lot of house prices over the last 12 months and over the 5 years in Fife. But when it comes to newspapers talking about the property market, the headline most people look at is what's happening to house prices. Now, the key here about house prices is, however, as 2 in 3, that's 65% almost of Fife home sellers are also home buyers. The prices is obviously irrelevant, and let me explain. So everybody thinks the prices are important, but the prices are really irrelevant. If your property is going down in value and you want to buy, the one you want to buy has also gone down in value. So you're no better or no worse off. And if you're moving up the market, most of the people do when they move home. And as a press property market, the gap between yours is worth and what you will buy gets lower. Is that right? Yeah, meaning you're better off.
Yeah, I think.
So why would it be much of a bother about property prices?
Yeah, I always hear people saying, "Oh, it's a buyer's market or it's a seller's market," but really, like you say, the majority of people will be selling and then buying. So if you're selling your property at a higher price, you're going to be buying it at the same kind of price point. So do you know what I mean? It's that kind of balances it sell out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Certainly, that's what we're seeing at the moment, isn't it? When people are purchasing what they're paying over potentially the home report value, they're also receiving on their property. So it does balance itself out. It's just a number that marries up at the end.
Yeah, that was quite interesting when you said that, Perry, because I was out with someone the other day and we actually talked about it. And I said, well, I expect to get this amount for your property over the home report value. And they went, wow, that'll allow us to buy the next one because we expect that to be a lot more. But what they didn't realise in the beginning before I actually came to see them was they actually thought they were just going to get the home report value or a lot less. I was actually really surprised they didn't realise that they were going to get significantly more, which will allow them to upgrade to the property they really want.
I think it's a bit like that, isn't it? When you are actively looking to purchase a house, you're looking at it and what you're going to. You don't necessarily reflect on what you have and how that's going to get you there, do you? So whilst you're thinking, oh, I'm going to need to pay X amount over to get this, your brain doesn't compute that as, well, actually, the person who's potentially coming to buy yours is thinking exactly what you're thinking, but you don't see it that way for yourself, do you?
I mean, many property commentators, including myself, consider a better measure of the health of the property market is actually the number of transactions. So this is the number of people selling and buying. That tells me the true health of the property market. So let's take a look at the numbers for Fife, for example. So the average number of properties sold in Q1, which is January, February, March this year, between let's look at the credit crunch. Let's look at 2008 to 2020. So let's go back and look at Q1 of each on average. So the Q1 of every single year from 2008 to 2020. So that's the January, February, and March of each of these quarters. There was an average number of properties sold on average 407 properties per month. Whilst in quarter 2021, that's this January, February, and March, we saw 582 properties sold on average per month. And that was boosted by the March stats, where an eye-watering 724 homes sold. So this really meant that 42.8% more houses sold in the Fife area in Q1 of 2021 than the actual 14-year average. Did we expect that? I was actually quite surprised when I looked into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the way the markets went over the past 6 months to a year, I don't think anybody's really expected it.
But I didn't expect it, Richard, because when you think about it, that's the average, the 407 over since 2008 to 2020, and then we're now selling and instructing more than that, yet we actually thought there was a limited supply.
Yeah, I mean, the supply and demand thing is a big factor at the minute. And we definitely feel that the supply, or to us, it feels like the supply is obviously low and kind of dwindling just now. So, but the figures are surprising then.
Yeah. What do you think, Perry? I mean, did you expect that? More properties sold now in the first 3 months than the other average from 2008 to 2020?
No, I wouldn't have anticipated that at all, in all honesty. Obviously, I'm new to the market, but even as a potential person looking for a home at that point, I wouldn't have expected that there was going to be that much property out there, or certainly that many deals done. And I know there's maybe an element of it, and that's slightly maybe disjointed because we kind of were in lockdown, weren't we? And then everything was kind of a little bit released then. So maybe you would expect maybe people who had maybe November, December time, they would then come through in that point, wouldn't they? So that's maybe where you see that inflated part at the beginning of the year. But actually, as we're going to talk about just now, you actually see that trend still continuing, don't you? So I think everyone's quite surprised about that.
Aye. Let's drill down then. So let's look at the average number of properties in Q2 then in April, May and June between 2008 and 2020. It was 504 properties per month. Whilst in Q2 of 2021 just passed, there was 593 properties sold on average per month. And that meant really that 17.6% more houses sold in the Fife area in Q2 2021 than the 14-year average again. What's going on? I thought there was a restriction in supply, because when you think about the logic about since 2008, you would have thought in 2020 there'd be a complete restriction in that supply then, because it was a lot less. So what's driving this? Where's this coming from?
I think it's been driven from people's want, isn't it? I think lifestyle's changing. And I think that the whole lockdown scenario has made people reflect. People's quality of life is different. What they're needing from their home is different. Their families may be downsized, they're maybe upsized, but also people are now working at home, aren't they? So they have a specific requirement. So I think life's reflection and what new life looks like for people post the lockdown has to be a factor to this, because there's nothing else to explain why it's so different.
Yeah, I think that the implications of obviously people's change in lifestyle and how they want to live, I think has had a big impact in that. And then obviously the changes in tax relief and things as well, as short-lived as it was, also has an influence on that, I think, and why these figures obviously changed.
You're still my thunder. I'm building up to that. You're peaking too early, Richard. So finally, I mean, whilst the exact stats for Q3 2021 for a local authority won't be published by the Land Registry for a couple of months yet, I could make a certain calculation assumptions for the national data published by the HMRC. So the number of property sales for our local authority area in Q3, July, August and September, between 2008 and 2020 was an average 551 properties per month. However, using the HMRC data, I calculate that there's probably about 413 properties sold on average per month in this quarter. So what does that mean then? Well, that means really that 24.9% less houses sold in the Fife area in Q3 2021 than the 14-year average. That's completely changed now. That's gone the other way around. That's a lot less than what's actually the average before. So what drives that then? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to then look up the month-by-month statistics for the local authority for the last 12 months up to the end of June 2021. So here they are here now on this graph. Now, as you can see, there has been some interesting months in terms of the housing transactions. So one of the two main drivers of activity in the housing market for the latter half of 2020, that meaning the Q1 figures were better than the long-term average market, was the battle for space. Probably a classic example that drove that. So we had the battle for the space, which was spoken about. Many Fife buyers seeking larger properties to work from home. The second was the short-lived tax relief measures, such as the cut in the land and building transaction tax, meaning I keep calling it stamp duty.
I know. I think
Stamp
about
duty to
buying a
me.
stamp duty.
What is it? LBTT. Well, it's just stamp duty, is it though? Meaning property prices were at an all-time high.
Yeah.
But what also might surprise you is the number of people first-time buying. Now, this is where I think it drives it a lot more, the activity. 1 in 4 mortgages since lockdown has been for first-time buyers. So now there's 25% first-time buyers coming into the market. So that then wasn't really there before, because first-time buyers were always an issue about getting on the market and all the rest of it, and actually getting a house. So we're now seeing the first 5 first-time buyers coming through as a result of that. So what do you think is driving that market for first-time buyers then? I mean, when you think about the logic of this, most properties are going well over home report value, and I'll be honest, can a first-time buyer afford that? Possibly not.
Possibly not, but I think, certainly a whole year of doing nothing has helped boost the pockets of some people. But I think the main thing that's driving it, I think, as parental help is a big factor.
Bank of mum and dad.
Yeah, the bank of mum and dad. You're not quite there yet, Jim, but I'm sure it's coming. Mine is.
I've done it already. I've done it already with my eldest. I did it already with.
I think that is a driving factor. I think that parents, again, when we watched the news, didn't we? And everyone got a bit scaremongered by everything that was going on, what we were seeing, and what we believed the future might or might not look like. And I think that for me, certainly, what you want to do is see your family settled, don't you? So, we talked about this on the last show, Jim, and there's no point in holding on to it and giving it to them when they don't need it. So I think a lot of parents are starting to think that way, and it's like, let's help them now so that they can actually have the decent life that they would like them to have, and the good start where they don't need to worry about it. And in all honesty, certainly what we're seeing in the pricing as well of the property market in Fife is that actually even the pricing, whether or not they went over home report or not, property pricing here is increased phenomenally, isn't it? So not all young people can afford that kind of level of property without that assistance, because wages times mortgage abilities, etc. So I think families don't want to see their children tied down to like 30-year mortgages and things like that. So I think it is a case that there's a big want to help now, and that's driving it. Even from the show on Sunday's update, out of the 6 properties that concluded, 4 of those were first-time buyers. So we totally are experiencing it. So that's not a surprise statistic for us, really.
I think what's driving that, though, is because we've been realistic in coming in the home report values in conjunction with the surveyor. And it's actually taking account of what property prices are like right now, rather than actually taking account of property prices that have actually settled from 6 months or a year ago, which is what a lot of them were based on before. So we're actually driving that forward, and that's allowing first-time buyers to actually get that, because they can mortgage up to that value on the home report, whereas if it's based on a 12-month out-of-date figure, which got over the line eventually, it's 10% out at least. So 10% out at least, they're never going to be able to afford the extra money anyway, and they're going to be priced out of the market. So I think more to do with that, as well as government's 5% deposits.
It's just the government's things as well.
And that's all helped push house price growth up since the start of 2021. In fact, if you split down the house price and the growth between, if you split it down, the house price growth between the second time and the third, etc., first-time buyers and buyers themselves, the national average house price inflation for first-time buyers is actually 9.2%. So that's the average. And I'll say that again, the average house price inflation for first-time buyers is 9.2%, while the average for second and third-time buyers is 8.1%. So first-time buyers are actually paying a bit more, but proportionally it won't be, because second-time buyers would probably be in the 200,000 mark. So, 8% of 200,000 is 16,000. 9% of 100,000 for a first-time buyer is 9,000.
Exactly.
So they can probably stretch that. We've had that recently where people have actually done that. I mean, the UK economy continues to deliver a benevolent framework to the British housing market, really. I mean, it's perfect. It's almost like, is it really? Do you think we should describe it as a perfect storm?
Don't know if we want to use the word storm in case that if it's kibosh on everything.
Well, do you know what? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
But I do,
you know, it's
yeah.
almost like the planets are all aligning and everything's in place. I mean, the labour market's outstripped expectations, with the millions expected to join the dole queue at the end of furlough failing to materialise, when the number of job vacancies on the market are actually on the rise, and they're past 1 million. You know, so all these people all need to retrain for new jobs, and we know ourselves from experience of recruiting that, you know, to get the right person out there and to get the right person with the right experience, you know, might take more money to do that. And I think that's, you know, that's probably quite prevalent in the BBC today when I was reading the news online on the red button. It's that everybody seems to be experiencing that. And of course, I mentioned in a lot of my recent posts that the Bank of England's projected is projected to increase interest rates to dampen inflation in the coming months, with further small rate rises predicted in 2022. So I do expect demand for property to cool off as mortgage borrowing costs actually increase as a result. But again, we come back to saying that most people are on fixed rate mortgages.
Yeah. I think of it.
So
I'm on a fixed rate.
I'm on a fixed rate.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, so
I think
it makes absolute sense.
Borrowing costs increase and things, and you will naturally or expect to see the demand for property to do kind of slow down a bit, but you never know. The market's been so unpredictable lately, but that's generally how you would expect it to go.
Yeah, I think most people will be surprised I'm actually saying that I'm on a mortgage. But if I can borrow money from the bank at 1.69% and I could make 15% net return on it and buy to let, then I'm going to borrow as much as I can from the bank. That's why I've got a mortgage.
Yeah.
So it makes absolute
sense
to make money on the bank's money at this point in time. Anyway, I would say it's what I classify as good debt. So there is good debt and there is bad debt. It depends what you're using it for. So normally such rises in mortgage costs would mean less property to sell, yet nothing over the last couple of years has been normal in the whole context of things, has it?
No, I think it's been quite unpredictable the last. I would say year. I would say even slightly longer than a year. We've seen trends that people predict have just not transpired, and even their own expectations of things turn out different. So, yeah, it has been quite unpredictable.
What's your thoughts on it, Perry?
I mean, for me, week on week we see it, don't we? More properties being sold than property being listed. You know, and then we have situations with one particular property you think is going to go one route, and actually it takes unparalleled route in a different direction and takes us by surprise. And it is like the perfect storm. We've got that situation with a property just now where we can't get enough people through the door with the popularity and demand on it. And I think people are maybe going at a rush at it now as well. I'm finding with people that we're speaking to, there's a bit of a rush to say it's nearly at the end of the year and I need to get something I've been looking for months, because people seem to have this old style mentality of, you know, come 1st of December, the property industry just closes and we don't reopen again until February. And so there's a little bit of an element like that where people, I think, feel that they're running out of time a little bit. But there's also a mixture of people who are frustrated because they're maybe like 6th, 7th, 8th time now on trying to buy something and continually losing out. So people are kind of driving that market, not just in how quick something sells, but also for the number that it sells for.
Yeah. So many Fife homeowners, when you think about it as well, have held back putting the property on the market in the last 6 months. That's another key thing here as well. And because they're afraid they would sell their own home but not find one to buy. Now, we've talked about this recently in a recent show, thus making them homeless. Now, let me then say this again. Nothing can be further from the truth. Yet that's what a lot of people incorrectly believe, that they're not going to have somewhere else to go. It is practically impossible. Please. I feel like shaking someday. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I know, but I think
again, we come back to say you'll never be in a position where you'll be left without somewhere else to go. It is impossible. And for anybody out there that doesn't believe us, please contact us. We'll explain to you how that's impossible.
You can see why people fear that, though. I mean, people, we're very much kind of creatures of habit, aren't we? And we fear the unknown and the thing that we can't control. But that's why you need to have a great agent that's going to actually manage all that for you. And we've got all those extended entry dates that we've spoken about to manage to people's timelines and things like that. So, you know, it can be done. But sometimes, yeah, you just need to take that leap of faith, don't you, at the end of the day, and make decisions.
That's a big stumbling block, that kind of mindset.
Is it really a leap of faith, though? Think about that. Richard, is this really a leap of faith when you think about it?
No, and I think that is quite a big stumbling block for people when they do have that mindset of, I can't put it in the market till I've found what I'm looking for. And it's really the completely opposite way around.
Yeah.
And like Perry says, you need a proper agent to explain to you how it works and how that isn't the case. And that's how we've got so many people sitting at the end of the year with property to sell who have been looking to move on for a long time, but they've been reserved because they've got this in their head that they can't list until they find who they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic example of fear, false expectations of sale. That's really it, and that's what ultimately fear is. It's just hypothetical situations that everybody goes through about what can happen, and because we're so negatively programmed by the media around about us and newspapers and everything, we almost assume the worst every single time, and that's never the case. It can always work out perfect, and you can find your next dream home, no bother. I mean, if the Fife property market slows down and interest rates rise, mortgage costs will still be very low by historical standards. Also, if the obstacle of raising the 5% deposit can be overcome by first-time buyers, plus a confidence that existing homeowners won't be made homeless because of the cooling of the property market, many more people could actually be tempted to enter the property market by placing their property for sale first in the process. We keep saying it and beating this drum all the time. You know, if you're sitting saying, I'm going to wait for the ideal house to come up before I put my house on the market, guess what the other person's saying? It's got your dream home. They're saying exactly the same thing. And unless everybody takes that leap of faith that you were saying, you know, I say guaranteed success, I would say, unless people take that guaranteed success approach, then they'll never find their dream home. They'll always be sitting waiting. And the classic example again, I went to see a couple the other day. They've gone, let's go for it. After I clearly explained to them why this will be an impossible situation where you won't be left without somewhere to go. And they went, that makes absolute sense. Let's go for it. And also, you can have the entry date of your choice. You can more or less, choose the price that you want for your property at this point in time because of the lack of supply in the marketplace, and there's still so much demand. I shared it the other day with my graph, and I actually demonstrated the activity from our website, the activity from Rightmove, is the same activity it was 12 months ago on the websites. So this demand is still there from everyone. So if you thought 12 months ago it was fever pitch, it still is.
It is, and I think that fear factor that we speak about, it is that way, and people are hesitant sometimes, and we hear it weekly at the moment. Oh, I don't want to sell just now because I've not seen the house that I want. But actually, what people don't really realise is actually they're not out of control. If they make that decision, put their property on the market, they're in complete control of what happens and when it's going to happen, because they're the people that have to agree to it.
Yeah.
And if their buyer comes along, then the buyer will work to their timeline.
Ding, ding, ding! Give that person a cuddly toy. You said the exact phrase, didn't you? They're the people that have to agree to it. That's the only way they can actually be without somewhere else to go, if they agree to that condition.
Yeah.
It's like, but if they don't agree to it, they'll always have somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm. We've had people this week miss out as well because they haven't made that leap and decided to put their property on the market. And they've viewed property and then actually haven't secured it when they've wanted it because the other offers are in a situation where they can proceed. So that's a situation where you're not in control versus being in control.
And you know yourself, and we've tried it successfully with a lot of people before. It's like, this is what you need to do. You need to manage the sale. Put your house on just now. Manage the sale. Do the Do Not Disturb campaign. We can put it on. We can get all the people lined up for after the new year itself, and then make sure that all these people are pre-qualified to the fact that you don't have anywhere else to go as yet. So this entry date is not going to be 4 weeks. It's not going to be 8 weeks. It's not going to be possibly 3 months. It might be a lot longer. But there is people out there that want to agree to these entry dates. We've recently had 6-month entry dates, 9-month entry dates, and what was the other one?
12.
12 months. And they concluded the missives and paid a deposit, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah. So if you want the dream home that you really want, you can make it happen, and we can make it happen. You're guaranteed that we can do that for you. You just have to make sure you let us manage that for you and make sure it happens. I get my soapbox about this sometimes. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for the fact that you know the answer to everything everybody wants, but it's difficult to convey it sometimes to people, and because of their preconceived conditioning, they believe this false expectation appearing real, which is fear. It comes into play, and they're afraid of the fact that they could be homeless, and they can't be. It's not possible. So if more people enter the market and tempted to enter the market because of this, it'll open the market to more buyers, which in turn will drive up transaction numbers back to the normal 14-year average. However, raising a deposit is likely to remain the primary obstacle to many. I mean, if you're a Fife homeowner or first-time buyer, and you want our thoughts on the future, then feel free to contact us direct. Final thoughts on this, guys, because we're only wanting to do a half-hour show tonight for this. So, Richard, what's your thoughts and what advice would you give people out there?
I think as about the fear thing, I think if we talk about the last, obviously, the topic we just touched on, and I think to get over that fear, you really need to have the right person giving you the correct guidance in order to go through that whole process of putting your property in the market without the fear of thinking you've nowhere to go. And I think things, like I say, with the market are so unpredictable and have been recently, but it's a really good time to be on the market and to be selling your property and looking for a new one. Just make sure you have the right agent.
Yeah. Perry?
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with what Richard says there, and I think it is a case of building that relationship and understanding what it is that you're stepping forward to. But we've commented throughout this show about how things have been unpredictable, and I think 2022 will be as unpredictable. We don't really know if it's going to run out of steam or keep going at the pace that it's going.
Well, I know what's going to happen in 2022.
But it's certainly what we're seeing is it's not kind of slowing. Yeah, exactly. So there is a bit of that, but I think it's you as an independent person can control the controllables, and I think that's what people need to always remember, that just because they agree that they're going to take that step and put their property up for sale doesn't mean to say that they're relinquishing all control and say in what happens. They primarily are at the heart of everything that happens next, and I think that that's what people just need to have confidence in, and that will drive what happens within the market, I think, going forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody gets a chance to watch the Sunday night updates, I always give an update on the number of transactions coming on the market in the last week, the number of properties actually sold right across Fife in the last week with all the estate agents. And then I give my advice on where we should be in terms of pricing and in terms of offers over or offers under even. There is properties out there you can still get offers under. You can even get properties actually before they go to market on the VIP priority access system that we operate, plus also through social media channels. If you can get that on pre-portal launches, so there is golden opportunities to get in there. But most of these priority access and pre-portal launches are only on the premise that you're in a position to proceed. If you've got a house to sell and you're dependent on that, and you've not got it in the market, then you're not clearly in a position to proceed. And I'll guarantee you, every single estate agent out there will not entertain your offer at all. A solicitor won't actually say that either. They'll not accept that unless there's a compelling reason why you want to do that with an individual, because it's maybe a member of your family, or it's maybe somebody you definitely want to have that property. That's the only reason that'll happen. So 2022 is going to be an interesting year ahead for the Fife property market. Only time will tell again if this brief respite. Or is it going to run out of steam in terms of that? I'd be interested to hear everybody else's thoughts on this. But until next time, guys, and the Fife Property Show on Saturday morning, bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.